May 12, 1945. Okinawa, Sugar Loaf Hill. From the unmailed letter of Private First Class James Mole Rossi. Dear Mom, don't show this letter to Dad. He thinks war is flags and trumpets. It isn't. War is mud. War is darkness. We took the hill today. We lost 400 men, but the hill is empty. The Japs aren't on top of it. They are inside it. The ground sounds hollow when you walk on it. At night they come out of holes like ants. They grab guys sleeping in their foxholes and drag them down. You can hear them screaming under the earth for hours. The captain asked for volunteers. He said he needs men who aren't afraid of the dark, men who are small, men who are mean as a snake. I raised my hand, Mom. I'm going down there. If I don't write again, it means the darkness kept me. May 14th, 1945. 08 hours. Captain Miller stood before the remnants of Charlie Company. They were decimated. I need 5 men, Miller said. Small build, strong nerves, criminal record preferred. 5 men stepped forward. Corporal Rat O'Malley, 5'4", former chimney sweep from Boston, armed with a sawed-off shotgun and a bag of grenades. Private Silence Rodriguez, a knife fighter from the Bronx. He sharpened his K-bar knife constantly. He didn't like guns. Sergeant Tex Cobb, a former oil driller. He carried the heavy burden, the M2 flamethrower. Private Mole Rossi, the kid who wrote the letter. He had tunnel vision, literally. He felt safer in tight spaces than in the open. And Doc, a medic who had lost his mind after seeing too much blood on the beach. He carried a .45 in one hand and a morphine needle in the other. Your orders are simple, Captain Miller said, handing them flashlights and satchel charges. Find the entrances, go inside, kill the queen bee, collapse the hive. Miller looked at them with pity. You know you aren't coming back up until it's done, right? We know, Cap. Rat spat tobacco juice. We prefer the dark anyway. They found a spider hole, a hidden entrance disguised by a bush. Rat went first. He slid into the hole feet first, shotgun ready. The smell hit him instantly. It wasn't just rot, it was sulfur, unwashed bodies, ancient dust, and something sweet. Incense? The tunnel was tight. They had to crawl on hands and knees. The walls were damp clay, reinforced with bamboo. Lights off, Rat whispered. We move by feel. They crawled into the belly of the beast. 50 feet down, the tunnel opened up into a small chamber. Silence struck a match. The flare illuminated the room. It wasn't a bunker. It was a living room. There were mats on the floor, a small shrine with a photo of the emperor, a bowl of rice that was still warm. They were just here, Silence whispered. Suddenly, a trap door in the floor opened. A Japanese soldier popped up, holding a grenade. He didn't have time to throw it. Silence threw his knife. It hit the soldier in the eye. The soldier fell back down the hole. The grenade exploded under the floor. Whump! The floor heaved. Dust rained down. They know we're here, Tex grunted, priming his flamethrower pilot light. Good. I hate knocking. They pushed deeper. The tunnel system was massive. It was a city. There were hospitals, ammo dumps, sleeping quarters, and it was booby-trapped. Mole Rossi was on point. He saw a tripwire made of fishing line at ankle height. Stop, Mole hissed. He traced the wire. It led to a 500-pound aerial bomb wired into the ceiling. If they had tripped it, the whole mountain would have collapsed on them. Disable it? Doc asked. No, Mole smiled in the dark. Rewire it. He carefully moved the tripwire. He set it so it would trigger if someone came up the tunnel behind them. Rear guard, Mole winked. They moved into a large cavern. The air was thin. Breathing was hard. Suddenly, the darkness came alive. Click, click, click. It wasn't crickets. It was the sound of Nambu pistol actions being cocked. They had walked into an ambush. Dozens of Japanese soldiers were hiding in niches along the walls, waiting for the Americans to get to the center of the room. "Lights!" Rat screamed. They clicked their flashlights on. The beams cut through the dark, revealing nightmare faces. Japanese soldiers with gas masks and swords were launching themselves from the shadows. "Burn them! Burn 'em!" Tex Cobb didn't need to be told twice. He squeezed the trigger of the M2 flamethrower. In the open jungle, a flamethrower is a weapon. In a sealed cave, it is an apocalypse. A stream of liquid napalm hissed through the air, ignited by the pilot light. It hit the charging Japanese squad. The effect was immediate and horrific. The fire didn't just burn, it splashed. It coated the walls of the floor and the men. The heat in the cavern spiked to 1,000 degrees in seconds. The fire consumed the oxygen. The tunnel turned into a vacuum. The tunnel rats threw themselves flat on the wet clay floor, gasping for air as the firestorm roared over their heads. The screams of the Japanese soldiers were drowned out by the roar of the burning fuel. When Tex let go of the trigger, silence returned, but it was a heavy, smoky silence. The smell of burnt meat was overpowering. "Check your corners," Rat O'Malley wheezed, racking his shotgun. "If they aren't dead, they're mad." The fire hadn't killed everyone. A Japanese officer, his uniform smoking, charged out of the shadows with a Nambu pistol. He was blind, swinging wildly. Rat O'Malley stepped forward. He carried a Winchester Model 1897 trench gun. He had filed the sear down so he could slam fire, hold the trigger, and just pump the slide. Boom, clack, boom, clack. The 12-gauge buckshot hit the officer at point-blank range. It lifted him off his feet and threw him back into the darkness. "Clear right!" Silence Rodriguez shouted, throwing a knife into a shadow that moved. The squad moved through the carnage. They didn't stop to check bodies. They put a security round in anyone who looked like they might still be breathing. They were operating on pure adrenaline and hate. The cave system was a maze, and every turn could be their last. They went deeper. Level 2. The air here was stale. The ventilation shafts had been blocked by the explosion above. And then the psychological war began. The Japanese knew they were there. They started tapping on the pipes. Clang, clang, clang. And they started whispering. From ventilation holes and hidden cracks in the walls, voices echoed, "Help me, Mom." It was a trick. The Japanese soldiers were mimicking the sounds of wounded Americans to lure the rats into a trap. "Don't listen," Mole Rossi whispered, his eyes darting around. "It's not real." "Malene, you die, Malene," a voice hissed from a hole in the ceiling. Doc, the medic, started to shake. He aimed his .45 at the ceiling. "Shut up! Shut up!" "Easy, Doc." Sarge grabbed his arm. "They want you to shoot. They want to know where we are. Keep it tight." It was a haunted house, but the ghosts had bayonets. They found a heavy wooden door. Silence Rodriguez checked it for booby traps. Clear. They kicked it open. What they saw inside made them forget their fear and replaced it with cold, white-hot rage. It was a command center, but it was also a trophy room. On the shelves were rows of American helmets. Some had bullet holes. On the table, a stack of letters, mail stolen from dead Marines on the surface. And in the corner, a pile of dog tags, hundreds of them. But the worst thing was the flag. An American flag, blood-stained and torn, was being used as a doormat. The Japanese officers wiped their boots on it. Tex Cobb looked at the flag. He looked at the dog tags. He didn't say a word. He just primed the pilot light on his flamethrower again. The flame turned blue. "We aren't leaving," Tex growled. "We are burning this whole mountain down to the bedrock." Rat O'Malley picked up a dog tag. He read the name. It was a guy from his platoon who went missing 2 weeks ago. "Okay." Rat racked his shotgun. "No more sneaking. We find the ammo dump, we find the ventilation system, and we turn this volcano into a chimney."
They moved out of the trophy room with a new purpose. They weren't just hunting, they were exterminating. Mole Rossi found the main artery, a wide tunnel leading down to level 3. "Wait," Mole stopped. "Do you hear that?" It wasn't Japanese whispers. It was a low, rhythmic moaning. Real pain. They followed the sound to a side chamber. It was a hospital, but not for Japanese. Lying on dirty straw mats were 6 American Marines. They were the men who had been dragged underground in the night. They were alive. Barely. They had been tortured, used for bayonet practice. One Marine looked up. His eyes were swollen shut. Are you real?" he rasped. Doc rushed forward. He fell to his knees, opening his medical kit. "I got you, buddy. I got you." The Marine grabbed Doc's hand. Don't take me back. Kill me, please. Don't let them touch me again." The tunnel rats stood in silence. They realized the mission had changed. They couldn't carry 6 wounded men up 50 feet of vertical shafts while fighting an army. If they tried to save them, everyone would die. The captain looked at Doc. Doc looked at the morphine syrettes in his bag. It was the hardest decision of the war. Doc looked at the tortured Marines. Their bodies were broken beyond repair. Even if they got them to the surface, they wouldn't survive the hour. The enemy was closing in. They could hear boots in the tunnel. Doc looked at Captain Miller. The captain nodded slowly. It was a silent order. Doc took out his morphine syrettes. He didn't use 1. He used 5 for each man. He knelt beside the young Marine who had begged for death. "It's okay, son," Doc whispered, his voice trembling. "You're going home. Close your eyes. Dream about the girls in Brooklyn." He pushed the needle in. The Marine sighed. His body relaxed. The pain vanished. One by one, Doc gave them the long sleep. It wasn't murder. It was the only act of love left in a place devoid of God. When he was done, Doc stood up. He was crying silently. He reloaded his .45 pistol. "I'm out of medicine," Doc said, his eyes hard as stone. "Now I only have bullets." They moved fast now. No stealth, just violence. They found it, the central chamber, the ammunition dump. It was a cathedral carved out of rock, stacked floor to ceiling with artillery shells, mortars, and crates of grenades, enough explosives to level a city block. "Tex," Captain Miller pointed at the stacks, "rig it." Tex Cobb took off his flamethrower tanks. They were empty anyway. He placed his satchel charges, 20 pounds of C4 explosive, in the center of the ammo pile. "I need 5 minutes to wire the timer," Tex said. "We don't have 5 minutes," Rat O'Malley racked his shotgun. From the tunnel entrance, a horde of Japanese soldiers poured in. They screamed "Banzai." They didn't shoot. They charged with bayonets and swords. They wanted to tear the Americans apart with their hands. Doc looked at the tortured Marines. Their bodies were broken beyond repair. Even if they got them to the surface, they wouldn't survive the hour. The enemy was closing in. They could hear boots in the tunnel. Doc looked at Captain Miller. The captain nodded slowly. It was a silent order. Doc took out his morphine syrettes. He didn't use 1. He used 5 for each man. He knelt beside the young Marine who had begged for death. "It's okay, son," Doc whispered, his voice trembling. "You're going home. Close your eyes. Dream about the girls in Brooklyn." He pushed the needle in. The Marine sighed. His body relaxed. The pain vanished. One by one, Doc gave them the long sleep. It wasn't murder. It was the only act of love left in a place devoid of God. When he was done, Doc stood up. He was crying silently. He reloaded his .45 pistol. "I'm out of medicine," Doc said, his eyes hard as stone. "Now I only have bullets." Mole Rossi scrambled up the narrow ventilation shaft. He was crying, clawing at the dirt, pushing himself upward. Below him, he heard Tex laugh. Then the world turned white. Kaboom!
The explosion was seismic. The entire top of Sugarloaf Hill lifted into the air. The ground rippled like water. Smoke geysers shot out of every spider hole and cave entrance for a mile. The tunnel system collapsed instantly, crushing hundreds of Japanese soldiers and burying the bodies of the tunnel rats forever. Mole Rossi was blown out of the hole like a cork from a champagne bottle. He landed on the surface, rolling in the mud, gasping for air. He looked back. The hill was gone. It was just a smoking crater. May 15th, 1945. A Marine patrol found him walking down the road. Private Mole Rossi was covered in gray dust. He had no weapon. He had no helmet. He was walking like a zombie. The patrol leader stopped him. "Marine, identify yourself. Where is your squad?" Rossi looked at the lieutenant. His eyes were thousand-yard stares. He didn't see the road. He saw the dark. He saw Doc's needle. He saw Tex's grenade. "They're still down there," Rossi whispered. "They're keeping the hill." Rossi reached into his pocket. He pulled out the letter he wrote to his mother. He crumpled it up and dropped it in the mud. "They aren't coming back," Rossi said. "None of us came back." The tunnel rats were never officially listed in the history books. They were a shadow unit. But the Marines who fought on Sugarloaf Hill knew the truth. When the ground shook that day, it wasn't an earthquake. It was 5 men closing the gates of hell from the inside. If this story haunted you, hit that like button, subscribe. We have more stories from the dark, and sleep with the lights on.